probably heard of Budapest. You know, that gorgeous city split by the Danube. But do you know why the city is built that way, or why its government is constantly fighting the rest of Europe? We're pulling back the curtain today, and I'll show you why this country of 36,000 square miles is a geopolitical pressure cooker, how its cuisine is powered by a spice that isn't even native to its soil, and how its artists continue to win global awards despite all the chaos. Let's explore the story of Hungary. Okay, so interestingly enough, the story of Hungary begins not in Europe, but far away on the Eurasian steppes with a people called the Magyars. They were a nomadic group who migrated west. Then, around 895 CE, led by Chief Arpad, they crossed the Carpathian Mountains, founding their new homeland in the Danube Basin. This is the Hungarian conquest that the locals know as Honfoglalas. For a while, the Magyars were the terror of Europe, riding and raiding until a devastating defeat in 955 CE convinced them they had to settle down. And that's when Arpad's great-grandson, Stephen or István, entered the picture. Because in a massive political stroke, he was crowned king on Christmas Day, 1000 CE, with a crown granted by the Pope. This made Stephen I a Christian king and secured Hungary's place in Europe, all while avoiding the political control of the Holy Roman Emperor. So what did he do? Well, King Stephen I built the state, created the county system, and became a national saint. In the years that followed, Hungary grew into a major medieval power, but it faced two major existential shocks. First, the Mongol invasion of 1241 to 1242 decimated the country, killing about half the population. King Bela IV, the current king at the time, rebuilt the nation, but the scars were deep. Then, after the native dynasty died out, the great national king, Matthias Corvinus, brought a Renaissance golden age, building fortresses and creating the powerful professional Black Army. He kept the empire safe and strong, but after his death, a string of weak kings allowed the defences to crumble. The second catastrophe came in 1526 at the Battle of Mohacs. The Ottoman Turks, led by Suleiman the Magnificent, crushed the Hungarian army and killed the king. This defeat was the end of Hungary as a unified kingdom, and the country was brutally split into three parts: the centre under Ottoman rule, the west under Habsburg or Austrian rule, and the small semi-independent region of Transylvania. Eventually, the Habsburgs drove out the Ottomans around 1699, but they simply replaced one foreign master with another. And just like with other histories, this led to centuries of revolt, including the famous revolution of 1848-49 for independence, which was brutally suppressed. The relationship only stabilised in 1867 with the Austro-Hungarian Compromise, also known as Ausgleich, which created the equal partnership of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. You know what? That period of stability and modernisation built many of the beautiful cities we see today. But just when you thought everything was going well, World War I happened. It ended the empire, and the resulting Treaty of Trianon in 1920 was a national disaster. Hungary lost 2/3 of its territory and population to neighbouring states. This then created a deep, lasting trauma and a burning desire to reclaim lost lands, which tragically pushed the country toward an alliance with Nazi Germany in World War II, leading to the horrors of the Holocaust and another defeat. After the war, Hungary was occupied by the Soviet Union, and in 1956, Hungarians bravely revolted against Soviet domination, but the revolution was brutally crushed. The subsequent communist regime was known as Gulag communism. Compared to its neighbours, this situation was slightly better, but there was absolutely no freedom. The moment of true liberation came in 1989 when the Iron Curtain fell. This was the barrier that divided Cold War Europe into two areas, the democratic West and the communist East. And when it fell apart, physically and symbolically, Hungary quickly joined the West, becoming a member of NATO in 1999 and the European Union in 2004. So why did Hungary become a centre of all commotion in Europe? Well, it all boils down to one thing: its location. Hungary is a beautiful, landlocked tapestry woven into the heart of Central Europe. It covers about 36,000 square miles, or 93,030 square kilometres. It lies right in the middle of the Carpathian Basin, bordered by 7 different neighbours: Slovakia to the north, Ukraine and Romania to the east, Serbia and Croatia, to the south, and Slovenia and Austria to the west. Alright, so looking inward now, we can divide this geography into three main regions: Transdanubia, the northern mountains, and the Great Plain, or Alfeld. But before that, let me introduce you to the water that defines everything, the Danube River, or Duna. This is Hungary's longest and most important waterway. It flows eastward along the border with Slovakia, before making a major scenic bend north of Budapest. Then it cuts south, right through the middle of the country. For centuries, the Danube has been the backbone of European trade, and at almost 1,800 miles, 2,900 kilometres long, it's the only river in the world that passes through 10 nations on its way to the Black Sea. Now let's explore the regions starting west of the Danube, Transdanubia, or Dunantul. This is a region of rolling hills that starts in the west with the foothills of the Alps along the Austrian border. This hilly, picturesque territory is dominated by the Bacony Mountains, a rolling forested range with limestone and dolomite plateaus. Because of this, it's hugely popular for hikers, nature lovers, and cyclists. But on top of that, Transdanubia is home to the country's and Central Europe's largest freshwater lake, Lake Balaton. It's nearly 600 square kilometres wide. That's about 231 square miles. Due to its shallow nature, the summer surface temperature of the water can easily hit 77 degrees Fahrenheit or 25 degrees Celsius, making it a massive tourist destination, complete with sandy beaches and rich bird life. Then, if you head slightly north, you'll also find Lake Heves, one of the largest natural warm thermal lakes in the world, which is a major spa and wellness attraction. Okay, so moving across the Danube, we hit the northern mountains. This is a beautiful upland area that stretches northeastward towards Slovakia. While Hungary is mostly flat, this is where you'll find its high point, Mount Kekis, which stands tall at 3,327 feet, or 1,014 metres. The northern region is also home to the elaborate cave systems of Agtelek National Park, a UNESCO World Heritage Site, known for its karst terrain and the vast Baradla Cave. Finally, occupying all of central and eastern Hungary is the vast, flat expanse known as the Great Hungarian Plain, or Alföld. Can you imagine? This is actually the biggest plain in all of Europe. It's the country's huge agricultural heartland, just stretching out forever, with fields of cereals, vineyards, and orchards. Now, cutting right through the middle of this vast plain is the Tisza River, Hungary's second longest river. Fun fact, back in the day, the Tisza used to cause massive, frequent flooding that turned huge parts of the plain into marshland. But since the 19th century, they have built these giant levees, and now the water is kept under control. And tying all three of these regions together, the hills, the mountains, and the Great Plains, is the show-stopping capital, Budapest. It's an impressive city that didn't start as one place. It grew from three separate towns, Buda, Óbuda, and Pest, into one single unified capital, back in 1873. So now you've got hilly, historic Buda on one side, and the vast, sprawling Pest on the other. It's honestly a pretty unique feature that I don't see a lot in many countries. At this point, we've covered the deep history and the beautiful geography. But to truly understand Hungary today, you have to look at its political tightrope walk and its unique economic model. Right now, the political stage is basically a one-man show. Prime Minister Viktor Orbán and his Fidesz party. They've been in charge for over a decade, and they won their fourth straight supermajority in 2022. That means they can pretty much change the country's constitution whenever they want. This fierce focus on national power has caused a massive, non-stop fight with the European Union. Brussels even calls Hungary a hybrid regime, saying it's like a democracy that acts like an autocracy. So why this conflict? It all comes down to the rules. The EU claims Hungary is messing with things like the independence of its judges, the freedom of the media, and its corruption oversight. And this isn't just a verbal argument, because it costs a ton of money. The EU has actually frozen billions of euros in funds that Hungary desperately needs. To try and get that cash released, the Orbán government is using its veto power within the EU, threatening to block important things until they get concessions. But outside of that challenge, here's what the Hungarian economy is looking like. After a couple of years of practically standing still, the economy is facing some serious challenges. For instance, their GDP is barely moving. It was practically unchanged in late 2025, And the forecast for all of 2025 is a tiny bit of growth, maybe only around 0.4%. It should jump to about 2.3% in 2026, which is better, but it's still slow going. That's why projections now are about $248 billion. That small recovery will mainly happen because of the consumers. They're spending again, thanks to better wages and some planned tax cuts. But under this positive facade, you'll spot some big warning signs. For one, businesses aren't spending, which means investment has dropped by about 18% over the last couple of years. And since key customers like Germany are having their own economic issues, Hungary's exports are struggling. The country is also fighting the beast of inflation. Even though it's come down from its peak, the central bank has to be careful, since they expect inflation to drop from about 4.5% in 2025 to under 4% by 2027, but they need it to get all the way down to 3%. On top of those, Hungary is carrying a big credit card bill. The government is spending way more than it takes in, and it's projected to stay high at 4.6% of GDP and might even rise to 5.2% next year because of pre-election spending. This means the country's total debt is expected to climb slightly to about 75% of GDP by 2027. So here's the bottom line. Hungary is stuck in a really tough spot. It's highly dependent on the global economy, especially how well the euro area is doing, and it's trying to manage a fragile recovery at home while fighting a huge political and financial battle with Brussels. And while it's far from a crisis, you can definitely say the Hungarian economy is struggling to get up to full speed. But what about the Hungarian spirit? Well, it's a vibrant tapestry woven from deep-rooted tradition, world-class art, and yes, a whole lot of paprika. For a long time, traditional Hungarian culture survived untouched in the countryside. This genuine, rooted rural life continued right up until the mid-20th century. But then came the drastic, sometimes brutal, modernization of the communist era, and everyday life changed dramatically. Families became smaller, ties to the extended clan diminished, and culture became less traditional. Today, you're far more likely to see urban Hungarians in blue jeans listening to rock and pop music than in their traditional garb. So really, the culture, especially in Budapest, is highly cosmopolitan, embracing the famous intellectual coffeehouse culture alongside modern pastimes like watching television. While the old customs are often preserved as beautiful folk art or tourist entertainment, the daily reality is a dynamic blend of the past and the present. But if you want to taste true Hungarian culture, you have to talk about the cuisine. Hungarian food is rich, frequently uses red meat, and of course is defined by one spice, paprika. This spice, which originally came from the Americas via the Turks or Spain, is now a fixture on every table and a major export. That's why national dishes like goulash, rich beef stew, and the famous halasle fish soup are packed with flavour. To wash it down, homemade spirits like various fruit brandies called palinka are hugely popular. Beyond the dinner table, Hungarians place great importance on holidays and celebrations. The year is packed with holidays, mixing deeply religious festivals with national days. Take Christmas, that's a traditional family celebration. But Easter, that's for village merrymaking, complete with the famous playful tradition, where guys actually sprinkle the girls with water or perfume. It's a fun old custom meant to symbolise fertility. They also have big national days like March 15th, which commemorates their 1848 revolution, and October 23rd, which marks the 1956 revolution. These are huge occasions for solemn memory, mixed with popular parties, folk dancing, and singing. Even their national anthem, based on an 1823 poem, perfectly captures this blend of national pride and deep spiritual roots. Now, if you want to know Hungary's greatest claim to international fame, you have to look at its arts. In music, you know the name Franz Liszt at the top of classical piano, but the real modern masters were Béla Bartók and Zoltán Kodály. Bartók pioneered this amazing new sound by digging into ancient folk music traditions, and Kodály didn't stop at composing. He created his famous Kodály method for music education, which is taught all over the globe. And trust me, the talent keeps coming. You've got conductors like Sir Georg Solti and George Szell, who took Hungarian music worldwide. In literature, the goal was always to keep the nation alive, so poets like Sándor Petőfi became national heroes. This incredible literary drive continued right up until 2002, when Hungarian author Imre Kertész actually won the Nobel Prize in Literature. And it's not just books. Hungary is a force in the visual arts and cinema too. Directors like László Nemes proved that when his film Son of Saul won the Academy Award in 2016. So here's the takeaway. Hungary is a place with a complicated past, but a truly electric, vibrant present. Now, if you were to jump through time to explore one aspect of Hungarian culture, would you want to travel back in the past or fast forward to the future? I'm curious to know your thoughts, so drop them in the comments down below. And as always, if you enjoyed this video, you'll love this next one.